The 25th Hour Radio Show. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to the 25th Hour Radio Show today here on Monster Radio AM1150. I am your host, Rob Fairless, and on the phone I have one half of the rock band Air Supply, singer Russell Hitchcock. Russell, thanks for taking a few minutes out of your day to join me on the show.
My pleasure, mate. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining me. So, Russell, let's start the show off like this. Tell me a little bit about your early years as a child growing up in Australia and what led you into getting into music in the first place.
Well, I lived in the inner city in Melbourne with my parents and my sister. We didn't have a lot of money. There was always music in the house, though. My father was a singer with big bands in the 40s, and, he used to sing around the house a bit. There was always a radio with music playing of some description, but they were, in those days, because, I was the kid, it was always Frank Sinatra and Tony Bennett and the likes, great singers, of course. And, I didn't really have any kind of interest in music as a career. Didn't know what I wanted to do. I dropped out of high school when I was 15, which is a bad thing to do, kids. But I got a job in a department store and did that for 5 years. And I moved on to a computers company in their spare parts division. I was pretty happy with my job, but I'd actually seen the Beatles in Melbourne when I was 15 too. That was kind of a mind-changing experience. But once again, I had no way to get into music. But when I was 25, my girlfriend at the time told me that they were advertising for Singers for Jesus Christ Superstar, the 75 production in Australia. So after some, a lot of thought, I went along and auditioned, got the part. And that's where I met Graham Russell. And, we started singing together about 2 weeks after we'd met. And Air Supply, developed from there.
Now, it had to be a big weight off both you and Graham's shoulders when you realized that you were going to be able to do what you love without having to worry about where the money is going to come from. Was there ever a time in the band's history, in the very beginning, like a defining moment, you might say, when possibly everything wasn't going as planned with the band and there was a fork in the road? You had
absolutely.
to make a decision? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We were still in Superstar, and we released our first song in Australia, and it was a huge hit. And we went on the road as Air Supply at the end of 1976. And at the end of the year, we were offered to open for Rod Stewart in Australia. So we did 6 shows with him. And then after, I think the second or the third one, they asked us if we wanted to go to the US to open for him in North America. And of course, being with a band that's only less than 3 or 4 months old, to have that kind of offer, we couldn't really refuse it. At the same time, our record company encouraged us to stay in Australia because they said, if you stay here, we can make you the biggest band in Australia. And of course, we said we wanted to be the biggest band in the world.
Yeah.
So we took the offer to go with Rod. We recorded an album at the time in LA before the tour. We toured from September through December in 77, and we came back thinking that would be our the first stepping stone to have tremendous success everywhere. But for the next 2 years, we were dead in the water. We couldn't get any jobs. We could get them, but we had 7 guys in the band, and they wanted to pay us $200 a night. So if you do the math, that can't happen. But the moment that things changed back again for us was when Graham was in Adelaide in South Australia writing some new songs, and he called me, and I flew from Melbourne, and I listened to some songs that he'd written, and amongst those were Lost in Love, Sweet Dreams, and All Out of Love. So that was the moment that, I knew they were great songs, and I knew that if they got a shot again, that we would have a lot of success, not realizing, of course, that I didn't realize that it would be as big as it was after that.
And real quick, before I forget to ask, how did you guys come up with the name of the band Air Supply? Was there ever any other names in the mix that the band could have been?
We thought a lot about a name, and we were in Jesus Christ Superstar, and we asked the members of the cast if they had any ideas, and they were kind of really insulting. I don't think anybody took us seriously. But in any case, I was at the show one day, and Graham came in and he said, I had a dream last night. I saw a billboard with flashing lights around it, and it said Air Supply in the middle. So that was good enough for me.
Yeah, that's a pretty good dream right there. Yeah, it worked out pretty good for you guys. Now you two have had the good fortune of being, internationally known for your music. The name Air Supply is known all over the world, and even in countries that don't even speak your language. I mean, how do you think that happens? What is it about your music that touches everyone despite the language barriers there?
Well, first of all, I think melodically the songs are great. I've always thought that they touch people very deeply. I know that for sure. And they're easy to remember. The melodies are easy to remember. And we've had a lot of people. I've had people in Vietnam and Korea say, we learned some English from your songs. So there's a connection there that we haven't quite figured it out completely. But those things. I always thought the songs sounded beautiful too. If you didn't understand English, they still sounded, fantastic.
And now you two are on the 40th year of being together as a band. Last week I spoke with John McEwen of the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band. They're celebrating their 50th anniversary this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, this year. There's other bands out there who have stuck together, but it's just not common these days. What is it about you and Graham that makes this team such an enjoyable experience, even after all the years of being together?
We love what we do. We have a great time together on stage. I respect the hell out of him because I think he's a brilliant songwriter. We surround ourselves with great people. We have a great band. And we have a lot of fans that want to see us still. And we also still believe that we play at a very high level. I think our show's great. I'm singing still very well, and Graham's voice is great. We continue to play new music in the show, so it's not like a nostalgia, thing. But we just have fun. I mean, we don't take ourselves seriously at all, but we take the music obviously seriously. And once again, we have a legion of fans that, now we find that people are bringing their grandchildren to see the show that have been following us since late 70s. So that's a blessing, certainly.
Now you mentioned playing new songs. Is it tough on you two to pick which songs you're going to perform at a concert or on tour, since you have had so many hit songs and albums?
Well, we have the luxury of having had a lot of hits, so that's the core of the show. And sometimes Graham will say at the show, because we sound check every day that we play, I wrote this yesterday, or this is something I've been working on. What do you think? And if we both get the vibe that they're going to work for the show, then we, pursue that and rehearse them with the band, and we put them in, here and there. Sometimes we'll take one of our old songs out and give it a rest if it's not doing it for us. But, people that come and see us, they're going to hear Lost in Love and Here I Am and Sweet Dreams and Even the Nights Are Better and The One That You Love and Making Love, and I've got all the songs that they're very familiar with.
Now, I was watching an interview you and Graham did, and I don't know when it was, but you both stated in the very beginning your goal was to just make a record. That way it was permanent. Your songs could be passed down from generation to generation.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you this question here. It's a fun little question because I do this to myself. Because you two have been together for so long, you've went through so many different eras of clothes styles, hairstyles. Those things are permanent too, man. Do you and Graham or your family members ever look back on old videos of performances and reminisce and laugh about the time period differences and styles you've been through?
Oh, of course. I'm like sometimes horrified about some of the stuff I used to wear. And, obviously I got stuck with the afro, which, that was another period for me. But you know what, you've got to say that was then, this is now. And I mean, I wouldn't change anything if I could go back, because that was what was going on at the time. But certainly we still get a laugh out of a bunch of stuff we see.
Now, how does it feel to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? That's pretty cool. Was that ever on your mind before you got word of it happening, or was it totally unexpected?
Never. We were never really hip in Australia, for sure, because our career grew up in amongst AC/DC and Midnight Oil and acts like that, the Angels. So when we were inducted a couple of years ago, it was fantastic because, it really is kind of a seal of approval. Plus, we've been hanging around for so many years, we're going to end up getting something. But it was really an honor for us and one of the biggest thrills of my life.
And to celebrate the anniversary, you and Graham are out touring right now, right?
Oh, sure. Well, actually, I'm speaking to you from Canada right now. We have two shows here, one in Winnipeg tonight and one in Calgary on Friday. And then we go back to the US for a couple of dates, but we're touring extensively in November, December in Southeast Asia, Latin America, and we're doing 3 shows in Israel, I believe. So we've got dates booked up till next September already, so we're always busy.
Now, have you two ever thought about slowing down, or has that ever been brought up, or is that just a stupid question? Because I know you guys are still rocking and rolling. I'm just curious.
No, not a silly question. No, I find that if I'm back home again for more than like a week, 10 days, I start to get a bit squirrely, because I love doing this. It's my life, and my focus, my career is very important to me. And we said to each other many years ago that we'd do it as long as, first of all, we enjoyed working together, and as long as we thought we could still perform at our level, and as long as people wanted to see us. And none of those things have changed. So we see no slowdown in the future.
Now, before we wrap this up, I always like to give the guests an opportunity to mention something I possibly forgot, or just to give a thanks to all the fans who have supported them throughout the years. Is there anything you'd like to say to your fans, the airheads out there listening right now?
Well, we certainly appreciate each and every one of our fans, because, this is a cliche thing to say, but if it wasn't for fans, we wouldn't be here. And that's the truth. And also for you for giving me the time to speak and, spread the word. I do appreciate it very much, man. But just want everybody to be safe and happy and healthy, and come see us when you can.
Well, Russell, thanks for being a guest on the show today, sir. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
You're welcome, mate. You have a good day.
The 25th Hour Radio Show.